This Soonerscoop.com video is streaming in crystal clear 4K resolution on YouTube thanks to Enjoy Vision in Oklahoma City. Don't miss a moment on or off the field. Make every day a highlight with LASIK at Enjoy Vision. Enjoy Vision. This is where Sooner Scoop LASIKs.
Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosevich, George Stoya here from historic Campus Quarter, Soonerscoop.com studios. Welcome back to the Soonerscoop.com YouTube channel. Practice number 6 for Oklahoma, done. Wednesday in Norman. We were out at practice this morning. Talked to Brent Venables today.
National championship on the way.
Clip that, save it, play it every time something bad happens this year, and remember it was George Stoya that said it. Before we get into a bunch of Brent Venables stuff, and we did get out to practice today, I know that we've gone over the last couple times of just kind of the things that we saw out there today. Still kind of, it was more Wednesday than it was Friday when we were able, or more Monday. You get the idea. We got a little bit more on Friday. It's been lesser and lesser each time, which is understandable as they get closer and closer to the actual start of, I guess, the season, right? We're still in that preseason. I thought today was one of those days. I told you, it seemed like the energy was a little bit low, which is to be expected when I think it was kind of a reminder like, oh, shit, we got to do this for 2 more weeks over at the rugby fields.
It's been hot
in preseason practice. But before we get to everything from practice, Brent Venables today, let us tell you about our good friends over at William & Lauren. We have told you about them here for the last couple of months. They were with us through the entire football season. The official custom clothier of OU football, William & Lauren outfits your favorite OU players in custom suits that boost their confidence off the field to match their confidence on the field. Their perfectly tailored clothing ensures every Sooner stands out in comfort and style at prices that make luxury accessible. You can visit William & Lauren in Oklahoma City or the one in Tulsa, as the Stoya family has done, or online at williamandlauren.com. That is williamandlauren.com. Dress like a champion and make your style as legendary as Oklahoma football. We're going to just be stuck with your cheese and ass at William & Lauren the entire time, aren't we?
Hey, they did a great job.
No, they look good.
I looked amazing on my wedding day.
Incredible.
So, everybody talks about the bride on their wedding day. Everybody was talking about my suit from William & Lauren.
Not in the circles that I was in, but that's neither here nor there. All right, let's get into practice. Let's start with practice today. We went out there for about 40 minutes on Wednesday morning. As you said, the temperature has gone up, and it seems that the middle of camp has begun. Let's start here. As you see Jim Nagy out there today, we did see Jaden Ott. You reported on Tuesday, Jaden Ott, a minor injury. We want to stress a minor injury to the shoulder.
Yeah, I know a lot of you people out there on the Crimson Corner, certainly were freaking out a little bit, didn't understand what minor.
Which is understandable where this thing's coming from, right?
Yeah, especially given the injuries from last year. But it is a minor shoulder injury. We talked to several people inside the program that said it's not serious. He was limited out there today. I don't think he partook in a lot of the team sessions and things like that. But he was out there, doing some sprinting along with Caden Helms, who recently broke his hand, who was wearing a soft cast. And then you see Deion Burks. That's the other one we want to note right here. He was dressed out fully in pads and everything, but was not participating in some of the team stuff as well, some of the individual drills. I expect him to be back in practice later this week.
I think all things considered, I know that it feels certainly like some of the injuries are starting to pile up, and they are to a certain extent. The good thing is you got 20-something days. You got 24 days until the start of the season. Really kind of 17 until you get into that first game week practice. There's guys that are taking advantage of that. You certainly want to get some of these guys back that are hampered by some of the minor stuff, though.
Definitely. And I think the one thing I would say is all the injuries that have happened so far in camp are not ones that you should be overly concerned about. Like, last year at this time, Jaden Gibson had blown his knee out.
Sure.
Garen Hatchett had torn his bicep. Troy Everett had already been out with a knee injury. Like, you had a lot more severe injuries at this point. Right now, you're talking about some bumps and bruises here and there. And sure, there are several guys like, an Eli Bowen who hasn't even practiced yet that you're like, I have no idea what his availability is going to be like come the beginning of the season. But in terms of the guys that have practiced and gotten banged up, whether it's a Derek Simmons, Zion Kearney, who wasn't at practice today, he's dealing with it sounds like a concussion. Like, these aren't injuries that should be holding these guys out super long. So you hope to see some of those guys get back out onto the practice field. We'll just have to kind of, monitor it. And I get it, man. Like, one, you have to remind yourself it's just camp. But I also understand the like fear from the fans because of last year, where
here we go again, right?
Because there was a lot. Speaking of last year, there was a lot of guys that got kind of banged up. Where like Nick Anderson's a great example, where we were like, oh, he'll be back.
Sure,
it won't be a problem, and then he never really was back, right? And so I think that's the fear, but I do think that at least talking to people inside the program that there's been not a whole lot of concern yet with some of the guys that have gotten, nicked up.
And they have the new, the new team, the new medical team to get them back on the field, hopefully sooner than later.
Yeah,
right?
and that, and I think it's also pretty clear that like guys like a Deion Burks, a Jaden Ott, you know what you have in those guys. Oklahoma's going to be cautious with them. They tweak something, they get a bruise. Hey man, take a day off. You don't need to take those hits in team practice today.
No doubt about it. It was striking though, looking out at the running back position on Wednesday morning. There was 2 guys. DeBarco was taking reps just so they could continue to get more reps in for the quarterbacks.
Yeah. But DeMarco looked good out there.
He does look good. If they need to get him a couple carries, I'm sure that DeBarco Murray would be able to do it. All right, let's get into the Brent Venables stuff. We talked to him for the first time today on Wednesday since camp began. And, I think just getting a basis of what he's thought about the first 6 practices, it certainly sounds like there's been a lot of leadership being built, a lot of young players that we're going to talk about today within the program that, they are young, but at the same time are going to be stepping into larger roles this season. But here is Brent Venables kind of giving his overall thoughts on the first 6 practices, as well as kind of laying out the rest of the schedule for the rest of the week going into a scrimmage on Saturday.
A great competition, really in every room on the team. That's been a lot of fun. Practice number 6 done, and as I just told the team, and we're outside of game week, we're 12 or less practices before we got to be ready to go. And so we don't have a day to waste. And they got a lot of improvement to do, but it's a really competitive team. And again, as kind of what I said even in the spring, it's all a lot of, through 6 days, a lot of back and forth, and leadership is really strong on both sides of the ball. So that's been really encouraging. This is a time when you develop, your mental and your physical toughness that you want your team to be about. There's no way to get them ready other than doing really hard stuff. So that's what camp's all about. But tomorrow's a day off physically, and kind of go 3 days is our schedule right now. And then we'll take a day where it's just mostly mental and some other team building things, and coaches kind of circle up and get ready for the next 3 days. And that's kind of the schedule that we're on right now. Scrimmage on Saturday, so everything's been building up to that. Yeah, again, just how we play, the effort. Don't want it to be sloppy, taking care of the football, making good decisions on offense, playing within the scheme on both sides of the ball. Certainly will be some special teams too, and getting these guys to really understand the value of creating field position, all the hidden yardage. We'll work some of those situations and put some pressure on those guys, both in protection, our cover units, and different field zones, how we play special teams, put some pressure on our kickers and the punter as well. And then no sloppiness tackling from a standpoint on defense, tackling and preventing explosive plays. If they make big plays, they do it by earning it. And I saw that today. Saw a couple of really good competitive plays in our red zone live period. Today was our first day that we did some live, and it was good. So again, building to that, what you want. We'll have a second scrimmage in a few days after that. And then the guys that we feel like need it for more of a situational scrimmage after that.
We always kind of joke around here, at least at the Scoop offices, that they go into that first scrimmage, and you don't want to take a ton out of that first scrimmage, but I do think that it kind of sets the tone for the rest of the preseason.
Yep.
It'll be interesting to see if some of the guys that we've heard about here early in camp, specifically maybe on the offensive side, whether it be a Keontez Lewis or an Isaiah Satania that sounds like had a good day. You can read more about it on the Crimson Corner. I know, George, you put up some notes today. It'll be interesting once, quote unquote, when the lights come on, what some of these guys look like for Oklahoma.
Yeah, and that's certainly when you start to find out, okay, these guys are going to play a lot for OU. It's where some of the guys separate themselves in these position battles. They take a lot of stock into, obviously, every practice, but especially these scrimmages. They play them like real games. And it sounds, like Brent said there, they're going to focus a lot on special teams as well, which is a good way for a lot of guys to earn some playing time. You play well on special teams, you might get more of a shot on offense or defense, but you're right. And that's why you need to subscribe to Soonerscoop.com for $1. I'm sure we'll have a lot of scrimmage notes on Saturday after that takes place. But, Eddie, I think that is especially that first scrimmage, because the first one kind of sets the tone, and then the second one, and then you have a third one typically, which is more for some of the younger guys. I think by that point it's
kind of
you're
your
a
last
week or two
stand
out.
if you're a young guy that wants to make a move on playing time here early, at least in the season, and then on conference portion.
Exactly, because then you're getting close to preparing for Illinois State and Michigan, obviously. So this first one is always a really big one.
It certainly does seem like the position battles are going to continue here through out the rest of the preseason, probably on into the early portions of the regular season. But it does seem like the leadership unit is something that Brent Venables is pleased with. Also, it seems like there are a number of guys that are in position battles that are starting to make a little bit of a name for themselves.
Definitely, and he listed a ton of guys. I know we'll get to the clip, but on offense and defense, it sounds like they've got a ton of people that are not afraid to speak up, which, I think they had a lot of those guys on defense last year. I don't know if they had a ton of those guys on offense, and that's a welcome sight. You want to hear those type of things. And like you said, you have a ton of position battles, and competition's good, man. Like, that's what you want. You don't want just guys already penciled in. Sure, you have some of your veterans like a Robert Spears-Jennings or R. Mason Thomas that you've got penciled in, but there's a ton of other spots. You mentioned wide receiver. I think there's great. It seems like every day I hear a new name at wide receiver that's standing out. So
is that a good thing because they're exceptional and they're having great days, or if they're just the best of the group for the day? That's we don't know yet.
I will say, like, guys like Isaiah Satania, Keontez Lewis, Zion Kearney, who wasn't at practice today, but still, those guys are the names that come up every day.
Sure.
And then there's usually another one. Maybe it's a Ivan Carrion. I've heard his name a couple times. A Josiah Martin, the transfer from Cal, who we really haven't talked about at all. He's come up.
Even when he came in with the class during the spring.
So you've got, Elijah Thomas. He'll come up, here. Manny Choice had the big catch yesterday that you can see on OU's social media page. So it's a mix. It's a mix of things. I think as camp goes on and you get deeper into it, the same names start popping up. Reggie Powers is certainly one. We'll get to him in a second as well. But, yeah, it's starting to kind of figure itself out in camp.
Here is Brent Venables talking about the leadership unit just within the team, as well as a number of young players that are finding their process in Norman.
Yeah, I've been bragging that we have really good depth that way. Fabechi and John, Javante, Jacob Sexton, Jaron Canick, guys on offense, J. Mike and Keontez Lewis. Those are guys that bring great juice and energy every day. Carson Kent, super tough and competitive, and plays with a lot of passion, competes with a lot of passion. And then, again, I'm probably forgetting a few guys. Troy Everett, obviously. I've been bragging on his leadership. And then defensively, R. Mason, Kobe, Dolby, Gentry Williams, Robert Spears, Kip Lewis. I'm naming a lot of guys. And Cortland Gilroy, for a young player, man, he loves to compete. He's so hungry to learn. But I love, again, Reggie Powers, his passion and energy and intensity, his playmaking. I've told the coach we find a way to get this dude on the field, man, because he makes a ton of competitive plays. One thing to look good when nobody's blocking you, we're not in a scrimmage or running around through drills, but when it's time to play any competitive situation, I'd want Reggie at the front of the line. Just knows how to show up. And Boganowski, wherever he was a year ago, man, he's in another solar system. He's always played wide open and really fast. He's been always an elite effort guy, super physical. But man, now he has a process, and that's the challenge, man. You just can't have elite effort. You just can't be excited to play, man. You got to have a process. You have an elite process. You have an elite mindset. You take the bad with the good. You're ready to compete. You're ready to, have competitive endurance from beginning to the end of practice. You're prepared. You do the things you need to do to have your body right, your mind right, your spirit right. You go through a process, pre-snap and post-snap. That's where, those two young players in particular, man, they've just elevated their game and elevated the room. And so I can legitimately say that, across the board. Defensive tackles, again, Dom Williams and David Stone, Jaden Jackson, those guys in particular have really done a great job from a leadership standpoint. Been really exciting to see all of those guys that I just mentioned, develop.
I'll say what all of you are thinking, that perhaps a young Bob Prisbillo behind Brent Venables in that video. Wow. Reggie Powers, somebody that you wrote about on Wednesday on SoonerScoop.com. That's high praise for a 5'11", 214 sophomore out of Centerville, Ohio. Really good program. Certainly seems like he's coming into his own. And then somebody in a Cortland Guillory that we talked to on Wednesday after practice. We're going to get all the player stuff in a separate video here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel. But Reggie Powers, Cortland Guillory, through 6 practices, both those guys seem to be making way for themselves.
And it sounds like they are going to play quite a bit this year, especially, I would say, Reggie Powers. I mean, he has taken probably the majority of the reps at strong safety on the first team, and it sounds like he had a really nice interception today in practice. You see Cortland Guillory here. I thought physically he looks amazing. At corner,
maybe one of the best looking cornerbacks, just from a
100%.
Physical attribute standpoint that they have on the team.
I mean, size wise, as well as just his overall body, and I know Josh even made the comment that he went and watched him play.
Sure,
I think it was 9 months ago.
He was a staple on the recruiting reports during the high school football season a year ago,
and he has just made a lot of big plays. I think for him, he's in a room that's got a lot of young talent. It's just continuing to be consistent every single day, because he's going to make some freshman mistakes, but if he can limit those, I think there's no reason why we won't see him on the field this year.
Speaking of competition and developing depth, let's talk Oklahoma linebacker position. Nate Dreiling obviously taking over. Brent's still over there quite a bit with the linebackers. It does seem like he separated himself just a little bit. I think there's a tremendous amount of trust with Nate Dreiling and what he's getting. But it does sound like the linebacker core as a whole, we know about Kobe McKenzie, Kip Lewis, Samuel Masigo, Kendall Daniels, even to a certain extent, is going to be lumped into that group as well at the cheetah position. But it seems like they are developing a little bit more depth. And even an Owen Heineke sounds like he's had a pretty good preseason.
That's my guy.
camp.
I told you, I think it was a week ago or so, like, don't be surprised if you hear Owen Heineke's name. They really like him. He's been in the program now several years, super athletic guy. But I think as a whole, and Brent says it, in the clip that you're about to see, but he feels a lot better about that group. And you liked the top end talent, right? Kip Lewis, Kobe McKenzie, Samuel Masigo, those 3 guys, they're going to play a lot of snaps. But if one of those guys were to go down, who's stepping in?
Sure.
And I think they feel really comfortable with whether it's an Owen Heineke, who has been in the program a while as a walk-on. But I also think that guys like a James Nesta is continuing to grow. Marcus James, it's his first fall camp, and he got here in the summer, but he looks awesome.
Another one of those freshmen physically. He looks a little bit different than the classmates even in his class, but on the team and the position group as well.
Exactly. And then you have guys like, Kendall Daniels, obviously coming over for Oklahoma State. He's kind of playing cheetah, but can move inside, as well as a Taylor Heim, kind of in that same position. So I do think the depth, again, there's a lot of guys that haven't played a ton of football.
Sure.
But at least for Oklahoma. But I do think that Brent is starting to feel a little bit better about that group.
Here is his answer, talking about the depth at linebacker.
I feel better about that position. I was a little bit concerned. There's a lot still to be figured out, developed. Consistency, the things from the spring, just trying to get a feel for that. Didn't feel great, only because didn't have enough time to feel great in the spring. But through summer and through the first part of camp, the coaches have done a wonderful job. The players have done a great job attacking the areas that we needed to attack, and we're starting to figure out, what 3 guys can do together, and the strengths, the weaknesses, areas that we still got to work on, things like that. I feel a lot better. I feel really good about that group actually now.
Does that put Kendall Daniels more at that spot, and then he's kind of a cheetah linebacker?
Yeah, but that is a spot. They're all linebackers, hybrids and Yeah, I think his ability to play all three positions is what he has shown, and so excited about that. Be able to play behind the ball is different than playing outside on an edge, and he's done really well. He's got a good skill set: man, zone, pass rusher, A-gap fitter, things like that, taking on blocks. So he sees things well inside. But the other guys have all gotten better, and that's the best part of all of it is, Kip Lewis, Kobe McKenzie, Sammy, Taylor Wine, James Nesta, Owen Heineke. He's played really, really well. He's had as good a camp as anybody through 6 days. You see a lot of hard work in the summer. He's super instinctive, very athletic, explosive tackler, good in space, excellent blitzer. He's got really nice instincts behind the ball.
Somebody asked me the other day, George, who I was most excited to see. Kendall Daniels might be in that mix just because I know how they're going to use him, but I want to be able to see it. I think there's a lot of people, especially in the Sutter State, that remember what he was a year ago in Stillwater. Not so much. That's certainly not the player that I think a lot of people at Norman feel like he is. And it's going to be interesting to see not only how that linebacker group comes together, but just particularly where somebody like a Kendall Daniels, how he fits into what they want to be able to do. I think we know, but I'm excited to see it.
100%. And all I know is they want him on the field in some role, some capacity. They think he can be a big-time playmaker for him. He's got the athleticism and the body size that you want at that position. So I think for him, and we'll hear from Kendall in a different show, in a different practice report this week, but it feels like it's starting to click for him. I know he's trying to soak in a lot of knowledge right now from Brent Venables. Wes Goodwin, I think, is playing a big role in that as well. But I would agree. He's up there in terms of guys that I'm excited to see on the football field against a quality opponent.
By the way, there is an offense on this Oklahoma football team. Let's get over to the offensive side, talking with Brent Venables on Wednesday. Certainly seems like it's just a progression. They continue. Yep. They obviously got to stay healthy on that side of the football, get some guys back from that minor injury list. But it does seem John Mateer and company continue to take those steps that makes you think that maybe they are going to be able to figure this thing out offensively.
Yeah, I think that they've actually been pretty good through camp. I know that, talking to some people today, it sounds like they won practice today, especially during the team session. And I think that's a credit to Ben Arbuckle in the job he's done. I think that his scheme, is very creative, and that's getting some guys open in some different spots. And I think they also have some playmakers. We mentioned some of the names earlier in the show, but Isaiah Satania, Keontez Lewis, those are two guys that continue to pop up. I think Carson Kent is somebody that is making some plays in practice. So I think that they like that group. You mentioned it, though. They got to get some guys healthy. They got to stay healthy on the offensive line. They need to keep all of those guys ready to go, because that, to me, is really the key for this group.
Particularly explosive plays that were basically nil a year ago. It certainly seems like they're taking those steps. Isaiah Satania, as you said, had a long touchdown reception on Wednesday. Here is Brent Venables giving his thoughts on the Oklahoma offense, as well as George's question in terms of how's the explosive plays coming along for an offense that just didn't have any a year ago.
Again, it's never as fast as you want, but it's also at the same time a lot of the things that they've been able to establish and install has been impressive, and getting all of your parts to be able to be available at once, is what you hope for, and that's really both sides of the ball. But this will be the first opportunity for them to get the coaches and everything like that off the field and let them go operate on their own situation. You can get in a rhythm, but they've installed a lot. You put in a lot early, put a lot of pressure on the players, and get these guys to learn the value of working outside of what's required. What's required ain't never enough, and but that part's been good. And again, they've got a really good synergy about them. That is something that is typically takes some time, but you do sense that from the guys.
You mentioned earlier that you wanted more explosive plays. Have you seen some guys stand out at playmaking, running back, wide receiver?
I've seen several players. Won't single out anybody in particular, but both the running game and catching the ball, tight end. We've tried to put them in a lot of competitive situations. The be-ready periods that we have sporadically unannounced during practice the first 6 days, whether that's one-on-one pass rush, it's one-on-one receiver, tight end, backs with the skill guys. Again, situationals, you got 2 plays to go win the game, or 4th and goal at the 6, got to go win, or 2-point plays to go win, things like that. Field goal kicker every day, and the punter. We try to put pressure on those guys every day. And guys have responded. There's been good and bad both sides of the ball.
George, if there was going to be a player, then I asked you over the first 6 days that's not named John Mateer, who continually comes up when you're talking to people?
Boy, Reggie Powers is certainly one.
What about offensively?
Keontae Lewis.
Okay.
That's I was going to give it defense and offense. I would say Reggie Powers on defense, Keontae Lewis on offense. I think Keontae Lewis is going to play a lot.
Sure.
Isaiah Satania, I would throw in that same group. I think that he's been really good. I mean, the one that a lot of people probably don't want to hear because his name comes up every fall camp is Javonte Barnes.
Yeah.
I think he's having a really good fall camp.
Listen, he looks good physically. He has to stay healthy, like a lot of the guys that we talk about on these programs.
And look, if he's your number 2 guy, I don't think that's a bad option.
Sure.
So
we'll see. Need to get Jaden Ott hopefully back on the field by Friday.
To get, Xavier Robinson. We haven't seen him at fall camp at all. Taylor Tatum, I heard, is getting closer. Sounds like he's maybe going to be at practice next week potentially. So I don't know. Those 2 young running backs, you would hope they'd be out there for fall camp. We just haven't seen them yet.
It's never a problem until you look up and all of a sudden it's August 20th and you're wondering if guys are going to be ready in 10 days.
Exactly. So,
all right. That's good, George Stoya. I'm Eddie Radosevich. We'll be back here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel, breaking down everything that the players have been talking about. We talked to a number of players on Wednesday. You can see the John Mateer recap that we did on Tuesday, or I guess that would have been Monday, Tuesday boarding. It's been a long week. It's only Wednesday. For George Stoya, I'm Eddie Radosevich. We'll see you back here on the SoonerScoop.com.